Come with me to a magical place where being labeled the pork queen is a compliment, where being nice is just a way of life, and where all leaders of the free world must pass through. Welcome to Iowa. Whether you're a current Iowan, an Iowa expat, or an Iowan at heart, this show is for you. This is the Iowa Podcast. Real Iowans, real talk, no drama. From the Brady Dental Care Studio, I'm Justin Brady, and one thing that a lot of Iowans are really curious about is social media use. X, formerly known as Twitter, has been in the news quite a bit. Google is in the news now. I was just reading the other day that Google is starting to really tighten YouTube in what they can show, what they can't show. And of course, there's Instagram's algorithm change. No one even knows what LinkedIn is. I don't even know if that's a network anymore. Just kidding. But we've brought in Drew Harden, co-founder of Blue Compass, to discuss. You have a brand new report, right? On
we do.
Everyone,
Absolutely.
Iowan social media use.
Absolutely, yes. So this is something we do. It's market research, and so we are a digital marketing company. We do web design development, and so because of that, we have a lot of clients all over the country, but many of them are here in Iowa, and so they target Iowans. And so a number of years ago, probably, 6-7 years ago, we said, it's going to be really beneficial if we go out there and read some, surveys, get some stats on how Iowans use digital. How do they use search engines? How do they use social media? Things like that. Obviously, that'll be really beneficial for our clients. And we went out there and we couldn't find anything, Justin. There was no market research on how Iowans use digital media, at least not that we could find.
So there's overall market research, but just not focused on Iowans specifically.
Correct.
And
not
for small businesses and Iowa-focused businesses, that's a disaster. They need that data.
Yes.
So we're getting into all that. But as a reminder to everybody, today we're going to be contrasting, if you're a small business, or even if you're a parent that wants to know what your kids are doing on their phone, or even if you want to know what your spouse is doing on their phone, we're going to be going into all that today. But as a reminder, subscribe. We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio. We're on everything. So make sure to subscribe, and also make sure to tell your neighbor, your Iowa neighbor. This is produced in Iowa. It's produced by Iowans. We interview Iowans. Tell your neighbor how great this is. We'd appreciate it. So back to this. No data on Iowa social media at all, so you just went out and collected it all.
Exactly. So we figured, we better do something about this, because again, this really impacts our clients, and they need to know how their target audiences are using digital space, and so we can best connect with them. So again, probably 6 or 7 years ago, we did our first survey, and we studied things like, what's the most popular social media platform in Iowa? What type of, search engine activity is going on? What do people do primarily when they're on their phones, and things like that? And it became really helpful to us. So we continued to do it. And this is, probably the, 5th or 6th survey that we've done.
Oh, wow. And you started when? When did you
probably
start?
Started in 2017, I would say. Yeah,
okay.
Probably 2017. And we've just recently got back the data from our latest survey about how Iowans use digital.
All right, what's the winner then? Let's get into it. What's the platform that and I know you have age demographic. It's very, very detailed report. It's like 10 pages, I think. And if anybody wants to get really in the weeds, it's on your website. We're going to link to that, obviously. But who's the winner?
Yeah. And the survey, everything is out there for free. If people want to check it out, you can go to bluecompass.com/Iowa. That's where it's located.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
But so let me turn back to 2021 before I answer that.
Sure.
So 2021, when we did the study, we did it early 2021, and this was a pretty tumultuous time. Now is too in some ways. It was kind of a crazy time, and we noticed that social media activity just overall for Iowans was down over the past few years. So like 2020, 2021, activity started to go down. And Facebook at that time, we've always found that Facebook is the number one platform in Iowa. And I suppose that's not surprising because it's the number one platform nationally. It still is. But in Iowa, Facebook has always just been crazy stats. Like Iowans love their Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And so in 2021 was the first time we actually started to see a slight decrease in that usage. Facebook was still number one, but overall, almost all of the social platforms saw decreased usage than a couple years prior to that. And again, in looking at this, we think that was probably because of just all the negativity out there. You know, an election had just happened, all the COVID stuff. There was a lot of distrust. And when we surveyed Iowans back then, and this survey that we do is ages 18 to 44, and we survey, you know, so the younger, some older. And back then, 4% of Iowans said, hey, I'm done with social media.
Wow.
So now when we just did this survey just recently, only 1% of Iowans have said that same thing. So we see Iowans starting to get back on social media.
They were done only for a short period.
Just for a short period of time. And it was a small percentage of people that was done.
Super funny.
They're like, yeah, we're done with this. And
that's
now they're
kind
back.
of the
Now
state
they're
of
back.
humanity in general. You know, I'm never doing this again.
Never doing this again. But Facebook is back at number one.
Oh,
Iowans
wow.
love their Facebook. So 87% of Iowans that we surveyed use Facebook. 87%
Yeah,
of Iowans.
big.
Now the national average is 74%. So that's quite a bit more.
Yeah.
Iowans just love their Facebook, and we've seen
Why
that
is
every
that?
time that we've done this. Iowans love their Facebook. It's a great question. Do you have any theories?
I mean, based on your report, yes. And can I make a guess then, based on your report? Okay, so based on your report, I'm guessing it's because Iowans are a little bit more family oriented than other than the coasts are, and that happens to be the number one use of Facebook. That would be my guess.
I think that's part of it. Absolutely. I think that maybe is the main part of it. And another thing we did in the study that you may have seen, Justin, is we asked, hey, what's the number one thing you do when you get on social media? And, you know, is it going out and you know, watching things, having fun, doing this or that? But yeah, Iowans answered the number one thing that they do on social media is connecting with friends and connecting with family. So, I mean, that is kind of nice. That's originally what social media was for.
Yeah, remember those days.
And I think that's higher in Iowa than it is in a lot of other places. So I do think that's kind of cool. I like the idea that Iowans a little more family oriented.
Yep.
A little more Iowa nice, happy, positive, that sort of thing. So I wonder if that is part of it.
Yeah. So Instagram is also kind of that's been a behemoth. It's unmovable. It's just like, and I don't get it, by the way. I do not like Instagram. Now, on the Iowa podcast, we post a ton of like little clips of our guests on Instagram, but I just never have really gotten it. But finally, finally, seems like maybe some people are feeling the same thing here in Iowa because Instagram kind of took a huge fall. What's up with that?
So out of all the social platforms we looked at...
And again, everybody, this is Iowa.
Iowa, yes,
Yeah.
Iowa. Out of all the social platforms we looked at, 2 years ago versus now, all of them increased or stayed the same in usage with Iowans, except Instagram. Instagram usage decreased like almost 20%.
Ooh, that is big.
Which is very, very surprising. Yeah, I didn't anticipate that. But yeah, maybe your dislike is spreading. Maybe it's you. Maybe you're spreading the negative word about Instagram. Maybe that was the answer.
That's gotta be it.
So I think that is interesting because we've seen Instagram really, really increase over the past, 5 to 7 years. So this is the first time it's decreased.
Now, is that the algorithm change? Because in your report, you mentioned that they pushed and pulled and tweaked the algorithm in Instagram a little bit. Is that like maybe people ran for the hills and went over to, because Snapchat grew, right?
Snapchat grew
and then
quite a bit.
TikTok grew.
Yep.
So are people leaving Instagram for the algorithm change to go over to Snapchat and TikTok? Is this what we're seeing?
Yeah. Snapchat is the second most used social media in Iowa right now.
That's crazy because I don't even have an account.
Yeah. Obviously super popular with younger people. I mean, 18 to 24 by and far the most used. I mean, very popular. I have kids that are teenagers, and they're not really interested in any social platforms. 2 boys, but they are interested in Snapchat. They love YouTube also, but yeah, they're interested. Like all their friends are on Snapchat. So, and I agree. Like for me, I mean, of course, we're very young, youthful guys, but
course.
I don't think a lot about Snapchat personally, and I don't hear a lot about it, but it's really, really popular with younger people, obviously, yeah. But Instagram has decreased. So Instagram right now is Iowa's third most used social platform, and it's decreased quite a bit. So you asked,
That's
why?
amazing.
Why? I think part of it might be because of the algorithm change that you mentioned. Snapchat used to be timeline based. So in other words,
Instagram.
Instagram used to be timeline based. So when you would post, you would see content just based on who you followed and when it was posted.
Yeah.
And now, the algorithm has changed, so it gives you what it wants to give you, or at least, or what it thinks you want to see. And I think some people have been frustrated at that because it's changed the content cadence that they're used to seeing. And another reason, Justin, might be because of the proliferation of ads. There are a lot of ads on Instagram.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're perfectly targeted and they're actually helpful, but there's quite a bit, and that has increased a lot over the past few years too. So we wonder if it's some of those factors.
Sure. That actually makes a lot of sense because I know that one of the things, at least on X, I don't know how much time we're going to spend on that, but X, formerly known as Twitter, it's like way long, the shorter name, but also now it's longer because we always have to say formerly known as.
Right.
But I know that one of the things they changed or slightly adjusted is the For You feed, and now there's the chronological feed. Like they made that way easier.
Yes.
And they did two things. Like they brought back chronological because that's what people wanted, but they also improved For You substantially. And so as soon as they changed it, I actually used chronological for maybe a few weeks. Now I use For You because their algorithm is so good and it's constantly serving me really good content that I want. Like it used to be just serving me just polarizing, terrible content all the time. I actually got off of Twitter for a long time. It's just a junk platform. And now it's just always positive. It's entrepreneurial stuff. It's encouraging stuff nonstop. I actually like it a lot better. LinkedIn. We got to talk about LinkedIn. Does anybody even use it anymore outside of like the cringy salespeople? Like, I'm sorry, but like, is it dead yet?
I actually like LinkedIn quite a bit. And the reason I like it is
Don't encourage them, Drew. Don't encourage it.
So LinkedIn is the 7th most popular social media of Ireland. So I don't know that it's flourishing.
Are there even? So there are 7 total social media platforms, right?
So I think a lot of people feel the same way as you. The reason I like it is I really like, positive thinking, entrepreneurial, motivational, things like that.
Yeah,
and to me, when I post that type of content on LinkedIn, it does pretty well. And so I really like that about it. It's also a place where in my opinion, some of the more negative, like political stuff, you don't see as much of it just because
True,
it's
that's
a little
point.
more professional and people have their real names on there. But you're right. There's a lot of sales on there. I get so many messages that are sales, which is kind of annoying. And I almost never look through my feed. Maybe look at the first post that comes up. Yeah. But I almost never look through any social media feed.
What? What do you do?
I'm much more interested in posting than consuming. And I will occasionally.
From a brand standpoint, sure.
But, some of the you mentioned X, how it's getting better to you and you're enjoying some of that content. I think I've experienced some of that too. But so many of the platforms, regardless of who you follow, the algorithms will just serve you stuff that's negative or you're not interested in it. And I don't always find a lot of value in it. And so I try to focus a little more on posting personally. And that's just a personal preference. But I'm more of a LinkedIn fan than you are, I guess.
Yeah. Now, I did see that in all the news, obviously, Twitter, X, very tumultuous, right? Lots of negative press, lots of changes. Everything has basically, for those that don't know, I don't know how you couldn't know at this point, but Elon Musk, the Tesla guy, SpaceX guy, bought Twitter, killed off the bird. Now it's called X. Same technology, just different name. So a lot of people have been predicting its demise and saying it's not going to make it. But from 2021 to now, it's only 1% difference, right?
Yeah, it's essentially the same, at least here in Iowa.
Yeah.
Right. At least it's doing something different. Even if you don't like what they're doing, or even if it's frustrating to you, even if you have no interest in the platform, Twitter, which is now X, is doing something different
Yeah, no
than
kidding.
these other platforms. And it's really trying to expand. I mean, I think when we think of Twitter, we think of traditional, like 140 characters. We think of just a little bit of copy, just these small posts, but it's really becoming something different now. It's becoming a lot more video oriented, a lot more audio oriented. So it's really evolving and changing. And I think it's interesting. and it will be fascinating to see what happens. But it's moving away from the more traditional path that we see almost all the other social platforms doing. And so I like at least seeing something different. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
What I appreciate about it is it's very, very simple. And that's the one thing I feared with Musk talking about all these changes he was going to make. I'm like, that's the one thing that frustrated me a little bit with Facebook, is it just got very complicated. There was all these apps and weird things going on. Twitter has, even though they've added functionality, they've kept the feed, they've kept the UI, the design very consistent. It's still the bite-sized things, and now you have this incredible character limit, like 2,000 words or something like that, but it still chops everything off, and you have to click see more to expand that. So I do appreciate they've kept things consistent. So, like, you mentioned distrust earlier, and I want to go back to that because there, like you said, during the pandemic, politics, there's been this big fluctuation in trust, and something very interesting stuck out to me in your report, because I think the idea is, especially for small businesses, I'm going to talk to you, small business owners. I think there's this idea that as a small business, I cannot compete with the national people with the billion-dollar budgets. Is that actually, but with the mistrust thing, people don't trust the big players anymore. Now they trust the local people. Is this a huge opportunity for local businesses on social media?
I think so. And like you said, I mean, I'm a small business owner. It is difficult to compete with the really big brands that have huge, huge budgets. And the tech giants don't necessarily help that. I mean, you go to some place like Google, and a lot of the times, just because a brand has a well-known name, it's going to rank higher than you are, regardless of the content and quality. That's sometimes a frustration you see with search engine optimization. And so that is frustrating. What we found is, I once said that the number one type of post that they don't trust on social media is news. So 46% of Iowans say they do not trust posts from the news.
I mean, that's big. 46.
That's very big. 44% said they don't trust ads.
Yeah.
And then the third most mistrusted source on social media is corporations.
Wow.
So, obviously larger businesses, things like that. And local businesses, so smaller businesses, there was only a 7% distrust. So for smaller businesses, yeah, I think, Justin, that is positive and encouraging. And I love small business. I mean, small business is the backbone of our economy. And I love seeing people be more trusting of small business. I think that's encouraging for smaller organizations. And so, again, that kind of almost goes back to that Iowa Nice, more family and friends oriented thing as well. I thought that was encouraging.
Well, yeah, but what this is telling me is that I think most small businesses, to be honest, Drew, like, I'm in comms, and I mean, this is really good information. This confirms a few things we're doing on the Iowa podcast, right?
Sure.
But ads, big brands, corporations, and news take up most of the oxygen on social media. That's who has the resources. That's who's posting often. However, what your report says, at least in Iowa, is that all that money, all that time they're spending on social media doesn't necessarily have the impact it probably should here in Iowa. What has a lot of impact is when a small business with one location posts something, the trust in that post is way, way higher than the news organizations and the brands and the major ad campaigns.
I think it comes down to authenticity. And as time has gone on, things have changed. I mean, it used to be just a few news sources, and we just had traditional media. And I think people more and more can identify and understand like what's authentic. If you see an actor on TV, endorsing a product or something like that, it just doesn't mean as much anymore as maybe just someone, a regular person on their social media feeds posting about something that they liked. I think that authenticity, and I think a lot of younger people are noticing this too. I mean, you see like, influencer marketing, and you see a lot more, the rise of video on social media. It's like sometimes now when you see a video that's not well lit, it's not particularly well shot, that's almost more authentic and better than the Hollywood productions. Right. And there's almost more credibility to it. And I think that's really true of younger people as well. And so I do think that's a shift that's fascinating.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's I was just thinking about that the other day. When you see the highly produced things, it's almost less trust. And when you see kind of the crappy video, to a point, I'm not telling people to shoot crappy video. You should be polished, but that authenticity really matters. And if it's like a local business that you can smell, touch, feel, and talk to, like, and you see them posting, that's real, or at least you assume that's real. I imagine with like AI tools, GPT-4, it's able to create like fake videos. It's able to create a very realistic looking video. None of it's real. Like photos, it's able to write. I imagine as more of that stuff makes its way onto the web, the more important it will be for local businesses to keep posting stuff on social media. Yes?
You think back to, Hollywood blockbuster movies in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. And when we saw those, we were like, oh my gosh, that was so amazing. Did you see the Independence Day, something like that? And now you watch it and you're like, oh, that's kind of cheesy because I can tell that was fake, right? But back then we really couldn't tell. Will the same thing happen with all the AI videos and photos and things like that in 10 years and 20 years and 30 years? And will it be more evident that it's fake then?
Right.
Probably so. And I think, you're right. It's like, if it's super easy for us to make a AI photo or video or something like that, and how much more valuable and authentic is it if you can actually just make a real video?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things, Justin, we see with all the websites that we create and we monitor, and we get more quality traffic to come to our clients' websites. And as we do that, we run a lot of tests on just like the images that are there. And we run many A/B tests, both on social media and on websites, that time and time again show people give more clicks to, they spend more time with photos that are real, not stock photos. Because we all know when we see a stock photo, it's not real, it's not authentic. And so we tell our clients, if you have to use stock photos, fine. But if you can get real authentic photos, even if they look old and you shot them on your old iPhone 8, even if they're not quite perfect, we almost always see a better reaction, a better engagement from website visitors when it's a real photo instead of that fake family photo that everyone knows isn't real.
Real trumps fake.
Yes.
But there is obviously, there's probably like a sliding scale. Like obviously if the photo's super crappy, it doesn't work for you. But in general, if you're going to pick real or fake, pick real. Some cell phones these days actually have pretty good cameras, so pick real over fake.
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier Google. And I think I know a lot of small businesses for sure, because I'm in comms, you're in marketing. There's, you're in the digital marketing space. So we kind of understand this a little bit, but a lot of local businesses don't really understand that Google can be nudged, for lack of a better term. Like, you're not a victim to Google, and you can tell it to rank your content in a certain way. A lot of these small businesses have far more control over search results than they think. And so one fascinating thing is Google, for all the negative and positive publicity it's had, it's being sued as we discuss this. People are like, oh, I'm never going to use Google again. I'm going to go DuckDuckGo, or I'm going to go Bing. Google, what's the percentage there? They still own almost the entire search market.
97% of Iowans use Google. So it's
crazy.
the most used digital service in Iowa. And far and above Bing or DuckDuckGo or anything like that. So, for better or worse. So if you want to reach Iowans, one of the best ways is Google. And I think ultimately the best way is a really high quality, well-written, valuable web page that speaks to your target audience. And that's what search engine optimization is all about. It's really about, it's not a bunch of, tricks and code and things like that to get Google to do what you want, but it's creating real value for your target audience. It's serving them with something that they want. It's so powerful. We see the best traffic comes from organic Google searches, not paid Google searches, but organic Google searches. And when I say the best traffic, Justin, I mean the traffic that behaves the way our clients want them to behave. In other words, the most likely to make a conversion, to fill out a form, to submit an inquiry, to buy a product, or whatever that might be. And it's better when it comes from Google than when it comes from social media, or when it comes from a link from another website, or even when it comes directly, even from just typing in the URL yourself. And I think the reason for that is the intent. If you're on Facebook, your intent is usually to connect with friends or family, or watch something fun. But when you go to Google, your intent is literally to satisfy a query. So if your website can be the answer to someone's query, that's incredibly powerful, and they're much more likely to engage with your brand, to spend time on your website. That's really powerful. And so that's one of the reasons we focus so much on search engine optimization for our clients, is because it's so powerful, and Iowans love their Google.
Sir, search engine optimization, as you know better than me, obviously, is part like good code, good reputable website, how old the URL is there, the way you tag things, the way you write. But the biggest part, as you're saying, I think that scares a lot of people, right? I don't know if I can do all this, crazy stuff. But I don't know if it's 95% or less, or somewhere in there. But the biggest part is just like you said, consistently writing incredible resources and educational pieces that appeal to your ideal customer. That is the bulk of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And like you mentioned, the code matters, the load time matters, the user experience matters. If you have an old website that was built in 2005, that's not going to be a great experience.
Correct,
you need to have a solid foundation. But yes, it ultimately comes down to the content, because Google's number one purpose is to provide valuable content that serves its audience. Google doesn't want someone to have a frustrating experience and go elsewhere. And so if you can be the answer to someone's query, and what's interesting is Google watches what people do on your website, especially if you have Google Analytics installed. And so one of the best signals you can send to Google is people coming to your website and spending time.
Dwell time, yeah.
Going
just
to
hanging
different
out
pages,
there.
just hanging out there. And a lot of the times, Justin, we will have, we'll look at websites that have like 100 words on a page. That's not enough. When we create web pages for our clients, we always have, not every page, but most every page on the site, at least 600 words and more like 1,000 words.
Yeah.
And the reason is, if you have
and these are for pages you want to rank.
Yes, of
right?
course.
You probably shouldn't
The
have
contact us page
tons of words on the home page or something. Maybe not.
Not necessarily, no. But, if you have a web page for one of your services, and your competitor has a web page for a service, and they have 100 words and you have 1,000 words, which of those pages has more potential to add value to your audience? It's the one with 1,000 words. Now, it has to be well written. It has to be put in there. Smaller paragraphs are better, bullet points, images throughout.
If you're stealing other people's copy and
don't do that.
It'll screw with you.
No
It's
duplicate
bad.
content. Write it originally. Write it really well. No grammar issues or anything like that. But that is incredibly, incredibly powerful.
It used to be where the machine, like people who use the machines, and they would just copy, I think isn't that called Skyscraper or something like that? Or they would just copy other people's content and rewrite it and try to make it better. It used to be those tacky strategies were the ones who actually won. But less and less is that actually winnable now. It seems like just the people who write and do a better job talking to their customer, Google especially is getting really good at identifying very relevant targeted content now, which again puts a lot more fire into the local people who can outcompete the national brands. Because who understands Iowans better? You and small businesses understand Iowans better, a heck of a lot better than Amazon. As much as Amazon might like to think they have all the data in the world, they can target people, a small local business, if they're really in tune to their customer, can go circles around Amazon before Amazon gets up in the morning.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Another wrinkle to throw in here, and I talked about this yesterday, I was giving a speech on SEO, is AI and Google's use of AI. And right now, Google's in a beta phase using its Bard AI technology in its search results. So not everyone sees this now, but we think they will probably early to mid next year. And when you do a search, Google can give you AI results now. And it's really interesting how it's doing it. It's going out not just to one website, but to multiple websites, finding different bits of copy, compiling it. And so it's presenting more information on the search page. And so in one way, that's good. That's handy because it's shortening the searcher's journey. That's really nice. But on the other hand, for people like me and marketers, we're like, I want people to go to my website. Yeah.
Exactly.
So there's a bit of a frustration. And Google's done this, for a while with its rich snippets area up at the top where it'll answer a question, but it's doing it more and more. And the dirty little secret is, Justin, Google is not particularly interested in sending anyone to your website.
Correct. Yep.
Google wants to satisfy its shareholders. Google wants to be more profitable every quarter. And so how can it do that? And a lot of times that's not sending people to your website because it takes them off of Google's platform. Yep. And so one of the things we're working with our clients to consider is, let's think about Google not just as a place to send people to your website where they can find you, but let's think of Google as a place where you can post your information, hopefully intrigue your target audience, get a little brand awareness, and hook them so they'll come back to your website for more.
And your report also made this interesting point, and we're a little over time, so I'll just speed this up, but your report also notated that people are not necessarily buying on social media. They're certainly buying, right? You have metrics that shows a lot of them buy through Facebook is the number one thing if you're selling a product. You have those metrics. But what was interesting in your report is that they're using social media to inspire them to make buying decisions, and then they are leaving their house or going on another channel to buy those things. So local retailers here in Iowa, brick and mortar stores, if they are posting on social media and they are very connected to their customer, they can actually benefit without paying for ads. They can actually benefit from all this social media by carrying products people are interested in and being really in tune to their local market.
Of course, it depends on the industry and the business and the product, but social media generally isn't a great place to sell things directly. It is a lot better place to engage people and to create awareness.
Drew Harden, co-founder of Blue Compass. Do I call you co-founder or owner or just both? What do you prefer?
Whatever you want.
Co-founder, owner, Big Cheese, Blue Compass. Thank you so much for coming in here. How can people, people are listening to this, they're like, my gosh, we need some more help than I thought. How do they find you? How do they find this report? You gave it earlier, but go ahead and give it again.
Yeah. So if you want to check out the report, it's at bluecompass.com/Iowa. And if you want to check us out, bluecompass.com. You can reach out to us there. If you want to get a hold of me, you can find me on bluecompass.com, or you can go to drewharden.com. HARDEN, and I'm on pretty much every social media as well, especially LinkedIn, unlike you.
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm there. I'm just kind of wondering if it's going to die soon. I don't know.
We'll see what happens.
I've been getting some weird DMs too, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, what is going on? Drew Harden, co-founder of Blue Compass, thank you so much for coming on the Iowa Podcast.
Appreciate it, Justin. Thank you.
And to my fellow Iowans, Iowa expats, and Iowans at heart, thanks for listening and subscribing to the Iowa Podcast.